You've worked hard. You've put in the hours, and you've finally got the keys to something that reflects the person you've become. But then, a few weeks later, that first notification hits your phone. It's a ping from your bank app, reminding you that $680 has just been sucked out of your checking account. You look at your balance. You look at the car in the driveway. You start wondering if you're driving that car, or if that car is actually driving you straight into a corner you can't get out of. Hey, I'm Dylan from Dylan Investments. Money talks, and I'm here to translate it for you. We need to have a real conversation today, the kind you'd have with a friend over a cup of coffee, about the biggest wealth killer in modern America. It's not the stock box, it's not the price of eggs, and it's not even your Netflix subscription. It's the car payment trap that nobody seems to want to talk about honestly. By the time we're done here, you're going to see the car industry in a completely different light, and more importantly, you're going to know exactly how to stop your driveway from becoming a graveyard for your financial freedom. This isn't about telling you to drive a rusted-out bucket for the rest of your life. It's about understanding the hidden system designed to keep you on a treadmill of debt so that you can actually own your life instead of just renting a lifestyle. Let's start with a reality check that usually gets buried under the shiny marketing. When you walk into a dealership, you think you're there to buy a piece of machinery with 4 wheels and an engine. But to the people on the other side of that desk, the car is just a delivery vehicle for a high-interest product. We've moved into an era where dealerships aren't really in the business of selling cars anymore. They are essentially banks that happen to have a parking lot full of metal. They make more money on the financing, the warranties, and the protection packages than they do on the actual markup of the vehicle itself. This is where the trap begins to set its teeth. They don't ask you what the car costs. They ask you what you can afford per month. That tiny shift in language is the most expensive psychological trick in the book. Think about it this way. If I told you a pair of shoes cost $3,000, you'd laugh and walk out of the store. But if I told you those shoes were only $50 a month, a lot of people would start checking their wallets. When we focus on the monthly payment, our brains lose the ability to see the total cost of the commitment. We stop seeing the 84 months of interest. We stop seeing the fact that we're paying $40,000 for a $30,000 asset that is losing value every single time the sun rises. We're essentially making a bet against ourselves, and the house always wins. I want to tell you about a guy I know. Let's call him Mike. Mike is a great guy, works a solid job in sales, making about $70,000 a year. He's the definition of the hardworking American. A couple of years ago, Mike decided he needed a truck. Not just any truck, but a beautiful, high-trim beast that made him feel like he'd arrived. The sticker price was $60,000, which sounded like a lot, but the salesman was a pro. He massaged the numbers, extended the loan to 72 months, and got Mike a payment of $750. Mike looked at his paycheck and thought, I can swing that. It's a lot, but I work hard, I deserve this. Fast forward 2 years. Mike's life changed a little. He got married, they started thinking about a house, and suddenly that $750 a month felt like an anchor around his neck. But here's the kicker, and this is the part of the trap that really hurts. When Mike went to see about selling the truck to lower his costs, he found out the truck was only worth $40,000, but he still owed $48,000 on the loan. He was underwater. He was literally trapped in a depreciating asset that he couldn't sell without writing a check for $8,000 that he didn't have. This is the quiet crisis happening in driveways all across the country. We are financing our lives based on a monthly affordability that doesn't account for the volatility of real life. Here's where it gets even more interesting and a little bit darker. The car industry has mastered the art of the trade-in cycle. They know that if they can get you into a long-term loan, say 72 or 84 months, you'll likely get bored or the newness will wear off long before the loan is paid. Around year 4, they'll start sending you emails. Hey Mike, we want your truck. We'll give you top dollar and get you into the brand new model for the same monthly payment. It sounds like magic, doesn't it? But what they're really doing is rolling that unpaid $8,000 of debt from the old truck into the new loan. Now you're paying for a new truck plus the ghost of your old truck. Do this 3 times, and you're paying $1,000 a month for a midsize sedan because you're carrying the debt of 3 previous cars like a financial backpack full of rocks. This is what I call the wealth leak. Most people focus on their big wins, the raises, the bonuses, the stock market gains. But wealth isn't just about what you bring in, it's about what you keep. If you have a $700 car payment and you keep that cycle going for 30 years, which is what most Americans do, trading in every few years, you aren't just losing that $700. You're losing what that money could have become. If you took that same $700 and put it into a simple index fund every month for 30 years, you'd be looking at over $1 million in retirement. That car in your driveway isn't just costing you a monthly payment. It's literally costing you your millionaire status in your 60s. When you look at it that way, is any new car smell really worth $1 million? Now, I'm not saying you should never buy a car. We live in a world where, for most of us, a car is a necessity to get to work and take care of our families. But the way we've been conditioned to buy them is broken. Let's look at the hidden costs that the dealership never puts on the big glossy brochures. First, there's insurance. A brand new, finance car requires full coverage, and as cars get more complex with sensors in every bumper, those premiums are skyrocketing. Then there's the opportunity cost of the down payment. And finally, there's the biggest one, depreciation. A car is a melting ice cube. The moment you drive it off the lot, it loses about 10 to 15% of its value. By the end of the first year, it's down 20 or 30%. If you're financing that car at 7% interest, you are paying interest on an asset that is actively disappearing. Imagine going to the bank and asking for a loan to buy a big block of ice, and the bank charges you interest while the ice melts in the sun. You'd think that was a crazy investment, right? Yet, that is exactly what a new car loan is. You are paying a premium for the privilege of watching your net worth shrink. So, how do we break the cycle? How do we stop being the prey in this system? It starts with a fundamental shift in how you view a vehicle. A car is a tool, not a trophy. It's a way to get from point A to point B safely and reliably. Once you strip away the ego and the marketing, the math becomes much simpler. If I were sitting at your kitchen table right now, and you asked me how to handle this, the first thing I'd tell you is to ignore the monthly payment conversation entirely. When you go to buy a car, you talk about the out-the-door price. That's the total number, taxes, fees, everything. If you can't look at that total number and feel comfortable with it, the monthly payment is just a way to lie to yourself. The next thing I'd suggest is the used car sweet spot. There is a magical window in a car's life, usually around 3 to 4 years old. At this point, the previous owner has already taken the massive hit of that initial depreciation. The car still looks great, it's still reliable, it probably still has some warranty left, but it's 40% cheaper than the brand new version. If you buy a 3-year-old car and keep it for 5 or 6 years, you are letting someone else pay for the privilege of that first 30% of value loss. You get 80% of the car for 60% of the price. That is how you play the game to win. But let's go a level deeper into the psychology of why this trap is so effective. We live in a society that uses cars as a shorthand for success. If you see a guy in an $80,000 SUV, you think he's doing well. But in my experience, more often than not, that SUV is a sign that he's one bad month away from a total collapse. The truly wealthy people I know, the ones with 7-figure brokerage accounts, often drive 5-year-old Toyotas or Fords. They don't care about the image because they have the reality. They know that a car is a tool that loses value, while their investments are tools that create value. They choose to put their money where it grows, not where it rusts. I want to talk to the younger guys watching this, too. When you get that first real job and that first real paycheck, the temptation to go out and get a real car is overwhelming. You feel like you've earned it, and the dealerships are waiting for you. They have special programs for recent grads. They make it so easy. But if you can resist that urge and drive a reliable, used car for the first 5 years of your career and invest that missing car payment instead, you are setting yourself up for a level of freedom that your peers won't even be able to imagine in 10 years. You are buying your future self a house, or a business, or the ability to quit a job you hate. That's the trade-off. It's a new car today versus absolute freedom tomorrow. This is the part where most people get defensive. They say, "Dylan, I need a reliable car. I can't have my car breaking down on the way to work." And I 100% agree with you. Reliability is a non-negotiable. But there is a massive gap between reliable and expensive. You can get a dead reliable car for $15,000 to $20,000. You don't need to spend $60,000 to get to work on time. The reliability argument is often just a mask we use to justify a luxury purchase that our bank accounts aren't ready for. If you truly want reliability, look at the data. Look at the brands that consistently top the charts for longevity. Buy one of those, 3 years old, and maintain it. That is the most reliable financial move you can make. Let's look at another hidden part of the trap, the lifestyle creep that comes with the car. When you get a nice car, you suddenly feel like you need to live a life that matches it. You start going to nicer places, you spend more on car washes, you worry about every little scratch. It's an emotional tax that we don't account for. When you drive a modest, reliable car that you own outright, there is a psychological lightness that comes with it. If a shopping cart hits your door in the grocery store parking lot, it's a bummer, but it's not a tragedy. You aren't a slave to the object. You own it. It doesn't own you. I remember a guy I worked with years ago, David. David was obsessed with his image. He was making decent money, but every cent of it was spoken for. He had the luxury German sedan, the premium insurance, the high-end apartment to match the car. Then, the company went through a rough patch and had to do a round of layoffs. David was one of the first to go, because his fixed costs, mostly that massive car payment, were so high, he didn't even have a month of runway. He had to surrender the car, which destroyed his credit, and he ended up in a much worse position than if he'd just been driving something modest. The car payment trap doesn't just steal your future. It makes your present incredibly fragile. Here is the Dylan playbook for navigating the car world without getting trapped. If you're currently in a high-payment loan and you're feeling the squeeze, don't just sit there and take it. Look at your options. Can you refinance the loan to a lower interest rate? Can you sell the car, even if it means taking a small loss, and move into something significantly cheaper? Sometimes taking a $2,000 hit today to save $500 a month for the next 3 years is the smartest math you'll ever do. It's called cutting your losses, and it's a hallmark of smart investing. If you're looking to buy, follow the 20/4/10 rule, but with a Dylan twist. The traditional rule says you should put at least 20% down, finance for no more than 4 years, and keep your total car expenses, including insurance and gas, under 10% of your gross income. That's a great starting point. But my personal rule? If you can't pay it off in 3 years, you're buying too much car. And if you can pay cash, pay cash. There is no feeling in the world quite like driving a car that you truly, 100% own. Every mile you drive in a car with no payment is a mile where you are winning. Let's talk about the lease trap for a second, because that's the dealership's favorite weapon. A lease is basically a way to pay for the most expensive part of a car's life, the first 3 years, and then give it back just when it's starting to become a good value. You're essentially paying a massive fee to never own anything. They'll tell you it's a way to always have a new car under warranty. What they're really saying is we want you to have a permanent, never-ending subscription to a car payment. Unless you are a business owner who can fully deduct the lease as an expense, leasing is almost always a losing move for the individual. It's the ultimate expression of the monthly payment mindset that keeps you poor. I want you to think about the last time you felt truly stressed about money. Was it because you didn't have enough stuff? Or was it because you felt like your money was disappearing before you even got to touch it? For most people, it's the latter. We feel like we're working for the bank, for the landlord, for the utility company, and for the car dealership. When you eliminate the car payment, you are reclaiming a massive chunk of your labor. You are giving yourself a raise without having to ask your boss for a single cent. Imagine what your life would look like if that $700 stayed in your pocket every month. That's an extra $8,000 a year. That's a massive emergency fund in year 1. That's the start of a down payment for a house in year 3. That's the seed money for a business in year 5. That is the power of breaking the trap. The car industry wants you to think about status and comfort and technology. I want you to think about power and options and freedom. Here's where it gets real. The system is designed to make you feel like this is normal. Your friends have car payments. Your parents probably had car payments. Every commercial on TV is telling you that you're just one low monthly payment away from a perfect life. But normal in America today is being broke, stressed, and one paycheck away from disaster. I don't want you to be normal. I want you to be free. And being free means looking at the normal things everyone else is doing and saying, no thanks, I'm playing a different game. The next time you're driving and you see a shiny new truck or a luxury SUV, I want you to stop looking at the car and start looking at the math. See the $700 payment. See the 8-year loan. See the underwater equity. see the $1 million missing from their retirement account. Once you see the trap, the bait stops being attractive. You start to see your 5-year-old car not as a downgrade, but as a high-yield investment in your future. If this conversation opened your eyes even just a little bit, do yourself a favor and save this video. The next time you're sitting in a dealership and a salesman starts talking about what you can afford per month, pull this up and remind yourself of what's actually at stake. Your future self is depending on the decisions you make today. And if you're ready to take the next step and look at how these same hidden systems are working in the housing market, that's exactly what we're going to dive into next. Because once you learn to see the invisible strings, you can stop being the puppet. You have more control over your financial destiny than you've been led to believe. The car payment trap is just one of the many ways the modern economy tries to keep you small. But you're not small. You're capable, you're informed, and now you have the playbook. Go out there and make decisions that your 60-year-old self will thank you for. It might not be as flashy as a new car today, but a life of total freedom is the ultimate luxury. I know it's hard when everyone around you is upgrading and showing off. It takes guts to stay the course. But remember, wealth is what you don't see. It's the money in the bank, the investments growing while you sleep, and the peace of mind that comes from knowing you don't owe anyone a dime. That is the real congratulations moment. Not when you sign the loan papers, but when you realize you don't need them anymore. I'm Dylan from Dylan Investments. Money talks, and I'll keep translating it for you. Have a good one, my friend.